Now, as a nurse, you already know if it wasn't documented, it did not happen. And when it comes to your training records, you better believe it definitely follows that rule. Now, your training records at some point will be scrutinized. It may be during a routine survey, it may be the result of a legal proceeding. Either way, there's key things you need to have in place to make sure your training remains defensible. And in this video, I'm going to cover 5 common mistakes I see when it comes to training documentation. Now, welcome back to the channel. This is Staff Development Nurse. I'm Courtney, a registered nurse, and I give you tools and resources to help nurses just like you be successful in skilled nursing and long-term care. So let's jump right into number 1. Number 1 is the sign-in sheets. It's either missing altogether or is missing some key information. Now, your sign-in sheets need to have a couple components on it. It should list the instructor, the title of your course, the date of your training, and the duration. And you should always have 2 columns, a column for your participants to print their name and a column for them to sign their name. Remember, this sign-in sheet is literally the proof that they attended that training. Now, you want to always make sure you can clearly read the printed names on the sheet. There's nothing worse than reviewing sign-in sheets only to find you can't read or understand some of the handwriting, so that you can't prove who that person was and if they attended. This can run into a huge compliance risk. Next is no competency validation. And this is where some staff development nurses get confused that someone simply showing up to their training means that they're competent, and it isn't. So that sign-in sheet is not proof of competency. Competency shows that the person understood the information they received at your training. And you need to put competency components in place specifically outside of the sign-in sheet. Now, there's many different ways that you can prove competency. One major way that we see is through post-tests. You can also do other things like return demonstrations or observations. Either way, you pick whatever method of competency is good for your training plan. You just need to make sure you include it in your training. Next is post-test not being graded. This is the thing. Your post-test is meant to prove competency. And most of the time, we have a minimum score of 80% of higher to prove that a person is competent. If those tests are not being reviewed, if they're not graded, how do we know that the person is actually competent? You need to make sure you are grading those post-tests and it is clearly documented on each test that you reviewed it. The last thing you want is to have a surveyor come in, ask for proof of competency, you give them those sheets, and they are the ones that discover that, hey, they didn't even answer some of these questions correctly, and in fact, they didn't even get the minimum 80% score, which means they're not competent. Now, that runs into additional compliance issues because you never went back, you never retrained them, and it's going to lead to a spiral effect of them now drilling down in your training documentation records to specifically see how many other people did this affect. We don't want that. So to avoid all of that, just make sure those tests are graded. Next is your training doesn't address a specific concern. And this is where we come into trainings being too generalized and not specific. And microlearning, this is the key. I talk to you about microlearning from an aspect of being time saving and increasing staff engagement. But microlearning can be just as important from a compliance aspect because the whole process of microlearning is to get to the root cause of why you need to do the training to begin with. Now, if you're not currently doing microlearning or you're not familiar with what it is, then I do have a training course below. I literally walk you through my simple 3-step process that allows you to take any training that comes across your desk, determine what the root cause is, and added benefit, get it to 15 minutes or less. If you are not doing microlearning, you need to start doing that like yesterday. Yesterday, okay? And last but not least, your training record, your training plan itself is just not facility specific. So each facility has a very different feel, and that is all based off of the demographics of your residents that are coming in, the staff members in your building, right? It all makes a big difference. So we all have common topics we have to train on. These are our mandatory trainings. But when we're talking about like laser focused facility specific trainings, let me give you an example. If I have a building A where I had take residents who have traits and vents and building B that doesn't, you can imagine my training for both of those buildings will look extremely different because I'm tailoring those trainings specifically to my building needs. Now, you may be saying, how do I determine if my training is facility specific or not? Well, you're going to look at key documents that will help you plan out your trainings. Think about surveys that you've had and any audits that you may actively be doing for compliance or as a result of those survey outcomes. Look at your facility assessment. This is done annually. You might be doing training based on some quality measures. Have you seen a decline or drop in any of those areas? Or just any events that come up throughout the school year, mom brain, or any events that come up throughout the work year or your survey year that you need to address, right? So that is how you do facility specific training. Now, you as a staff development nurse, I always recommend this. You need to have your own running list of the trainings that you are doing in your building. And you need to have a rationale linked to why you're doing those trainings. This is extremely important because surveyors will question you. They will ask you, why did you do training A instead of training B? And having something that you can reference back to allows you to be confident in your answer and to be able to defend your rationale. And that is it. Those are our 5 common mistakes that I see when it comes to training documentation. So please, please, please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below. I like to see your comments. Let me know. Did you get anything out of this training? Have you run into any of these issues or concerns? Are there any practices you're going to change as a result of this video? Let me know below. And as always, I will see you in the next video.